This is Amy Chan from CakeDecoratingSchool.com, and if you like cake decorating, you're in the right place. Welcome to our flower series. In this lesson, we'll be piping Buttercream double hellebores. It's broken down into steps so you can skip ahead, rewind, and rewatch as desired. We're going to mix 3 colors today for our little flower, and first we're going to do is a nice little shade of orange. We're using American style buttercream. You could use Italian or Swiss meringue if you prefer. And we're using the following liquid gel colors: neon bright pink, sunset orange, lemon yellow, and finally some sky blue. To start with, I'm going to make a nice peachy shade of orange. So I've got some of my sunset orange and some of my neon bright pink out on a little lid. And we don't need a lot of color, so we're just going to start with a couple of specks of each, because we don't want super intense colors. We just want a nice blend. Get a nice soft blend of these two that has a bit of a peachy kind of creamsicle vibe, and that'll be a great place to stop. And that looks beautiful. Next, we're going to make some yellow. And so I've just got a little buttercream in my bowl. I'm going to give it a few specks of that yellow. And then just one tiny one of that orange, because I want to bring a little of that other color in there. I don't want a pure, bright lemon tone. I want it to have a little bit of that kind of eggy vibe. So just put in just a tiny touch of that orange. And I don't want it to be too bright either, because I want it to go with that beautiful kind of creamsicle color that we made before. And finally, we're going to make just a tiny touch of green, and we want to use a couple of specks of that yellow and just a little bit of our sky blue. And a tiny little touch of sky blue will go a long way. I kind of want the balance to be a little more yellow than blue. So less on the sky, more on the lemon. But I want the color to kind of have the same value as the other ones that I've made and have that kind of bright electric lime feel to it. So just go nice and subtle at first. Just give it a little bump if it needs it. I think I want it to be just a little more intense. There we go. I think that's going to read nicely next to our other shades. We are going to use 2 bags for this project. They're both 12-inch disposable, and we're using couplers with both of them since we're going to change tips. For the green, we'll be using a number 59 and a number 1. For a striped bag with the orange and yellow, we'll be first using a number 104 and then a number 61. If you haven't already, you can check out our video on bag striping to learn how to do a 2-color load. We've loaded our bag so that the skinny end of our tips will line up with that orange and the fatter end will line up with the yellow, and we're about 1/3 orange and 2/3 yellow. That way it's going to give us a nice bold stripe on the outside edge of our petals. Now let's review our techniques for our double hellebore. First, we're going to make some petals that are basically our flat leaves. So we're going to make a little leaf petal, and it's the same technique. We're going to start with the fat end anchored in the center. Skinny end is going to be pointing towards the outside edge of our nail. Back of the bag is at 130 and we're holding it 45 degrees. That means that when we pull up, we're going to rotate the back of the bag or our nail. You can just turn the nail a little bit if you want to create a point, and then we're going to come back down and rotate again. And that's going to give us a nice leaf-shaped petal that's wider at the base and tapered at the end. Next, we're going to make some cupped petals. And to do this, we're using our number 61 tip. Because it's got that curved shape, it's going to give us these beautiful little cupped petals. And we're going to make it just like we would a normal teardrop petal. We're going to be at 45 degrees. The clock position will change just a little bit based on how we're holding the opening. And that's the main thing with these. We're doing several layers of them. So to start with, we're going to start out with the tip almost laying flat. So like the middle curved part of it will be resting on our surface. And then we're going to rock it up to 45 degrees. And finally, we're going to have it almost straight up. And you'll see as I change, you naturally want to change the position of the back of the bag. So we're going to rotate that clock position on how we're holding it just a little bit, but the basic principle is the same. We're pulling out, turning, and pulling back, and that's going to give us that nice little cupped petal with that kind of upturned ridge on the edge. Next, we're going to use our 59 tip to create some little wedges. And for these, we're just going to hold it so the fat end is touching the surface. We're going to be at 430, so think the back of the bag is towards my right shoulder because I'm right-handed. If you're a lefty, just do the opposite. And we're going to start in the center of our flower for these and just kind of glide along the surface, really short little glide with the fat end of our tip. And that's going to create this nice little kind of wedge of frosting that looks almost like a super tiny petal. And we're going to do these basically in little concentric circles. So we're just going to use this to fill in the middle with a lot of little bits of texture. Spikes. For our little spikes, we're going to do what we normally do, which is we're going to hold our bag straight up and down, tip just away from the surface, pipe, let it connect, and pull away while still squeezing. And that's the important part of these. If you're still squeezing while you pull away, it's going to create that nice little spike of frosting that's going to give us the look of stamens. To build our double hellebore blossom out of the techniques we just demonstrated, we're going to first start with our 104 tip and pipe those flat leaf petals. We're going to do 5 of them. So think head, arms, and legs for your spacing, kind of equidistance. We're making a bit of like a pentagon, right? So, or a star, whatever works for you mentally to kind of help space those out equally. Then we're going to change our tip to our 61, same bag. Just make sure you have that tip lined up so your stripe comes out properly. We want the orange on the outside edge. And we're going to start not in the middle, but about halfway up one of those leaves. And you can just start in the middle of one of them and pipe a little cupped petal. For our first row, the opening of the tip is going to be kind of like flat on there. So think about making contact with the middle of the tip when you pipe those cup petals, and we're going to go all the way around in a ring and try to keep it kind of equally spaced out there. So we want to be about the middle of each of those petals. This will not only help connect all the elements of our flower, but it's going to give us a nice little base row. To do the next row, just start offset from the first one, so in between any 2 of those petals. And what we're going to do is rock that opening up a little bit. So think that 45-degree orientation with that opening, and just adjust the back end of our bag a little bit so it's comfortable and natural. And then we're going to pipe another row. We'll do then the same thing for a 3rd row where we're going to put it straight up. And this one, we're going to pull the back of the bag so it's at 430. And we're going to pipe a 3rd row. And that should leave us with a pretty decent void in the center of our flower. This is where we're going to change to our green. And we'll start with our 59 tip. Right in the middle, a single wedge, and then go around it. It might only take 2 or 3 to go around it. And then we're just going to go around it again and again until we fill up this entire area with those tiny little wedges. So it's going to give us a lot of little texture. Think of like an unopened center on a flower. Then we'll change to our 1 tip with our green, and we're going to go all around it and do some nice little hairy frilly spikes. And this is going to give us a nice warm color palette on this hellebore flower, and we'll have all those beautiful petals in there like you would with a nice double hellebore, because there's a lot of different varieties of these, and you can really get pretty wild with not only the color combinations, but the variations on the styles of the petals. We're going to get started piping our flower. We've got our striped bag with our orange and yellow, fitted with our 104 tip. I've got my 3-inch flower nail, and I've got a piece of parchment on paper on top. To help, I've got my little template down there to act as a guide. And I'm just going to start and pull a petal almost to the edge. So I'm just going to line a petal up with each of those little spokes. So you can rotate either your nail or the back of your bag, whichever one you're most comfortable with. Oh, and my paper keeps sliding around on me. Beautiful. We've got beautiful, equally spaced petals. They're approximately equally spaced. They don't have to be perfect. And we've got a nice color gradient on them. Let's do our first row of cupped petals. We want to start about halfway up our flat leaf petals. We're going to start with the tip opening, so it's kind of in that flat position, which means that the middle right there is going to be touching our petals. And we just want to pick a place to start and put down those beautiful little cupped petals. So we just want to go in a nice ring all the way around. And you can see they're just kind of gently cupped up. Just kind of that outside edge lifting off. And that's perfect. So I just want to go around. Until we meet back up with our first one. For our second row, we're going to change the orientation of the opening. So instead of being flat, we're going to rock it so that it's kind of at a 45-degree angle. And we're just going to scooch the back of the bag a little more towards 3 o'clock. Start in between two of your petals. And you'll see you get a more kind of extreme cupped look to them. Because of the difference in how we're holding it. So we're just going to go around till we get back to the beginning. For our third row, we're going to hold the opening of the tip so you can see it's pointing straight up for us. And I'm just going to slide the back of the bag towards 430. That means when I put in these petals, they're going to have even more of a severe kind of cupped look to them. They're going to almost start to curl in for us. So just changing the orientation of how we hold the bag, how we hold the opening of the tip, while doing the same movement can really change the way things look. And just go around until you complete that row. Now we've got our bag with our green. It's got our 59 tip on it, and we're going to go right in the center and pipe a wedge. Go right around it. Just short little squeezes with barely any movement until you fill up all of that area. Sometimes I even like to go right on top of the one before. So you can see it just fills in a little tight texture in there. I've changed my tip to my number 1 on my bag of green. I'm going to go right next to the center I already created and just pull some nice, beautiful long stamens. So it's going to give that center a little dimension, kind of change the depth a little bit because we're pulling up something long instead of something that's short and nested down in that hole that we created. And it's going to give it just a beautiful little look where we've got a little bit of texture, a little bit of movement, because you can let them flop over, fall towards the center, and fall away. So basically with these, I just like to let the buttercream do its natural, beautiful thing. And that gives us a little bit of a center with a little bit of depth and dimension and a little bit more realistic look where we have those kind of tightly coiled bunch, bigger pieces in the middle and those nice, loose, frilly little stamens on the side. That's all for this lesson on our double hellebore. If you liked this one and you want to try some other fun winter blossoms, you can check out our other lesson on hellebores or our great one on poinsettias. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like more about the cake decorating materials and equipment we use, or just some inspirational videos about cake decorating itself, you can follow us on Insta or YouTube at Cake Decorating School. If you'd like to know more about yearly membership and what it entails, you can go to www.cakedecoratingschool.com for more information. And if you're interested in these products, you can check the links in the description.